Good afternoon, my name's Simon Elmer. My colleague here, my friend, is Shaun Noble. I've had a long-standing interest in the military history of the Poles and Poland during the Second World War for decades. Ever since as a young policeman I met a number of their veterans whilst working in West London. My friend Shaun is a researcher and genealogist of some note, and one of his labours of love has been to work out the causes of death and the details of everybody whose headstones you see in the cemetery. And I'm sure Shaun will give you some more information on that. It is in print as well, which again I'm sure Shaun can assist you if you wanted to get some further information. 1944 to 2024, of course, is that 80th anniversary, and many momentous things happened then. At the moment, the national focus seems to have been on D-Day, but of course we shouldn't forget other things, particularly in the Polish theatre of operations. Of course, we had Monte Cassino in May. Yes, there was D-Day. You had the battles for Normandy, in which the 1st Polish Armoured Division was involved. You had the Warsaw Uprising, and you had the Operation Market Garden, the battle for Arnhem, where the Poles dropped predominantly at Arnhem Drill on the south bank of the river. On the British side also, of course, you had the battle for Kohima in the Far East, which again was a decisive and turning point in the war in the Far East. In a moment I'm going to hand over to Shaun. Shaun will talk in more detail about what actually happened on the 8th of July, 80 years ago today, which caused the tragic loss of life of a number of Polish paratroopers from the 1st Polish Parachute Brigade, Independent Polish Parachute Brigade, based in and around Stamford, all of whom were buried in a series of graves. As you see marked the 1st Parachute Brigade from where I'm standing, 3 rows out and all along here, so it's 1, 2, 3 rows. Hand over to Shaun, who can tell you about what happened in the skies over Tinwell at the south end of Lincolnshire 80 years ago this evening.
On the 8th of July 1944, the US 315th Troop Carrier Group took off from RAF Spanhoe Airfield at 21:30 hours on a training mission called Operation Hurdle. They were transporting 369 paratroopers from the Polish Independent Parachute Brigade in 33 C-47 Skytrains to various drop zones in the area. It is thought that a total of 39 paratroopers from the eastern on the aircraft were at an altitude of 1,300 feet, and the last 2 flights were coming out of a left-hand turn, and elements were in a 7-degree bank. Aircraft 42108873 got out of position and coming back into the formation, evidently crossed under in the turn. In coming back into position, he overcorrected badly and drove directly into the propeller of 4315341 with his right wing. Then with 341 left wingtip hitting the propeller of 873, he pulled back up. He then rolled over on top of 341 and hit his right wing with the nose of his left propeller. The aircraft fell apart, disintegrating as they fell. The aircraft fell in a field between Tinwell and Ketton. These practice formations gathered many onlookers, so there were many witnesses in addition to the aircrews in the following aircraft. Although not fully documented, it is said that some personnel may have tried to jump out towards the river. There was one survivor. Corporal Thomas Chambers was a radio operator in aircraft 341. The crew chief asked him to stand at the rear of the aircraft while he got some water for the paratroopers. As he was back by the open door, he put on a chest harness and chest pack. Standing about 4 feet from the front of the door, he saw the right wingtip of the 833 pass close by and then felt a severe jar, followed by another. He does not remember plainly, but he knows that the second jar knocked him backwards and out of the aircraft. Unfortunately, he survived the war and was discharged in 1945, where he again completed pilot training and joined the 44th Tactical Reconnaissance Squadron. Unfortunately, he was killed in 1955 when his Canberra aircraft crashed near the airbase.
Thank you, Shaun. So for those of you who've been in the airborne forces and undoubtedly jumped out of aircraft, I suspect 1,300 feet is not terribly high up in the overall scheme of things, and particularly in a traumatic and violent situation like that collision seemed to be. This, of course, was early July. D-Day was already 1 month old, and the airborne forces in the UK, both British, Polish and American, were beginning a series of intensive pre-battle training operations to familiarise themselves with what laid ahead. The Polish formation was unique in as much as its members had come from all manner of routes to escape German occupation, to eventually find themselves in the Polish Parachute Brigade, training in Scotland, obtaining their jump wings at RAF Ringway, now Manchester Airport. They had trained, lived together, having experienced all sorts of hardships and dangers on the way. And I would suspect that it's inevitable, therefore, that the loss of such a high number of men from one particular company under those circumstances was deeply felt by everybody that served alongside them. Turning to the names of the fatalities, it's important also not to forget the United States Army Air Force crews. First Lieutenant Leo Byrne, First Lieutenant James Leonard, Second Lieutenant Paris Bray, Second Lieutenant Richard Vendella, Lieutenant Charles Johnson, Sergeant Richard Hoyt, Sergeant Bert Salling, Sergeant Jack Dosler and Corporal Thomas Chambers. On the Polish side, so those were the Polish fatalities on that evening. They're all buried here in the book. Those are photographs of the grave being prepared, if you wish to see that. So bearing their names, they're all very young, born say between 1912 I think, and thereafter up to 1919. So all young men with a lot to live for, with their friends, their mates, and their aircraft going down. It's something to think about. I'll read from Laurence Binyon. I think it's as pertinent here as everywhere else. They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. I invite you now to join in a minute's silence in their memory. Thank you. When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today. If anybody has any crosses, wreaths or flowers which they'd like to come and put on one of the graves of these paratroopers, I invite you please to come and do so. Thank you. Yeah, that's it, yes.